As we start the new year, I often get asked, what suggestion do you have? And what is something that you do commit to every year? One of the things that I do, and the most important thing that I do, is that I commit to reading the Bible. And here's the thing. A lot of times people say, well, that's stupid. That's simple. I mean, really in reality, there's so many mistakes in the Bible, or, in the Old Testament, you have this brutal God. I mean, they come up with all kinds of excuses for it. I have a PhD in Bible, and I promise you to tell you that I really don't understand all of it either. But it doesn't matter, because the truth is that I don't understand air, how it really works, but without it, I just cannot breathe. I don't understand my wife all the time, and she will tell you she definitely doesn't understand me many, many times, but she still sticks with it. I began to read the Bible in prison, first and foremost, as an atheist. I began to read it as a book of war stories. I love war stories. So I read the Old Testament as a book of war stories. Then when I went to read the New Testament, I began to read it just as a book of morals. It has a lot of moral teachings. And I read it, and I read it over and over again. And eventually what really I come to realize is that it is that one thing that grounds me when that phone call comes, or when that situation comes that your life is thrown into turmoil. Think about it. Each and every one of us throughout our life will get that phone call, or we'll get that news, or we'll get that notice that would just destroy our lives, that will look at our lives and we wonder, like, is it really even worth living? But when we do get that story, the question becomes, what grounds you to keep on living? What grounds you to have hope? What grounds you to let you know that that too will pass? Ask yourself that. For me, what grounds me is I constantly read the Word of God. And it gives me peace. And I read about things that people went through. I read about, for example, one of the stories about faith that I really understood was, if you read the Old Testament, you notice that when the angel came to Sarah and Abraham and told them that she was going to have a baby, and she was just old, and Abraham was almost 100 years old, Sarah laughed so hard that she fell on the ground. That's really how the proper translation of it is. She thought that was such a joke. We never hear about Sarah anymore, except we hear about it in the New Testament, where it says that Sarah was the mother of faith. How can that be? How can someone that laughed at what God told her later on becomes the mother of faith? And I always envision something like this. I envision Sarah and Abraham sitting in a Porsche, in a rocking chair. And Sarah telling Abraham, do you remember when God promised us this, that he would make out of us, me barren, father and mother of many nations? Look now. Do you remember this? Look now. Do you remember this? Look now. And that's how things happen. And I promise you, when I first began to read the Bible, it did nothing for me. I had to read it over and over again. Now, I was privileged. I was in prison. I had nothing else to read. But it changed my life. And it is what grounds me today. Does it have things that I don't understand? Many. But there's many things in life that I don't understand. I just don't give up. I don't understand which came first, the egg or the chicken. Think about it. But I love eggs and I love chicken. So not understanding something or not believing in something, it doesn't give me the right not to give it a shot. So I gave it a shot. It's been now since 1990. It's been many, many years, 34 years. And every day, that's the first thing I do in my devotional. I read the Bible. And like I said, my PhD is in New Testament and ethics. I've read the Bible in every translation. I read it in Greek. I read it in Latin. Read it in French, German. I read the New Testament in every version and every translation that there is. And every time I read it, there is still something that speaks to me. I tell the story that My wife and I almost got divorced after 7 years of marriage. And it was bad. It was ugly. And it was painful. All my fault. I had to learn how to be a husband. I had to learn that the world did not revolve around me. See, I've been a celebrity as a drug lord, and now I was a celebrity as a Christian speaker, and I was speaking all over the world, and I honestly began to abandon my wife again. So I had to make a lot of changes in my life. One of them was I don't answer the phone after 6. It's the time that I spend with my family, that I am personally there. Not physically, personally. We can be physically in many places and not be really personally in that place. But that's just one of those things. But I have read the Gospel of John because many, many, many times, I don't want to tell you how many hundreds of times, and I'm not exaggerating one bit. And all of a sudden, there was a verse. So I was reading where John says that God loved him when he was a sinner. And all of a sudden that verse in that chapter spoke to me in ways that you cannot even imagine. Through my mind, everything you can ever imagine went through of the sinner I had become. All the horrors I had done. And I kept saying to myself, God, you love me when I was into living out pornography. You loved me when I was a drug lord. You loved me when I didn't care about people dying. You loved me when I was selfish. You loved me on and on when I was a cheat, when I was a liar. Everything that you can imagine. Yeah, God loved me then. So give it a shot. It's the greatest gift I can give you this new year. Read the Bible. Read the New Testament. Once you finish reading, read it again. Just read it as a book of morals. You don't have to be a believer. And perhaps, perhaps, it will be also that grounding tool. That grounding that you will need when, God forbid, the phone call comes or the news arrives. I wish you nothing but the best. May God bless you this new year. Be blessed.